Check this out. What's up, guys? So, I don't know if you guys can see, but I've got some performance goodies in the back that I'm keen to put on. So, we're gonna get straight to it. Alrighty guys, so in our last video we went to the racetrack and we pushed the Z to its limits and we found out that it doesn't like staying cool. So we're going to tackle that issue today with a Koyorad radiator that we bought from Car Mods Australia. So I'm going to pull it out. It was it's tucked away in the back there. I only just managed to fit it in the hatch. So for you guys that are shopping, you can fit a Koyorad in the back of the Z. So the more you know. Alright, so we're going to open this up. It's brand spanking new. Cost me, I think, just under $600. I managed to get it on sale. So that was a bonus, but I think otherwise they're just over 600. I'm going to say that I'm not really brand biased. I don't have one that I like over the others, but I did put it in the Z forum and the guys said go straight for Koyorad. Alrighty guys, so here she is. That's just beautiful. All the welds on it look fantastic. And I love that Koyorad branding on it. I reckon that looks awesome. I'm so keen to get this in. It's even got a little threaded bung in it over here and down here so that you can run your little temperature sensors. And I'm guessing that depending on the flow of it, I think it's just a standard cross flow. Some of the Koyorads you can get have little sort of partitions in them so that it has to flow further and you get better cooling, but it also takes longer. But I think this one is just standard. Yeah, this thing looks absolutely stunning. I'm so keen to get this bad boy in. Alright, so we've checked out the radiator. She looks pretty sweet. They do say that they are pressure tested multiple times during manufacture, so they should be good to go. However, you need to do checks after installation. So we're going to do that, but we got to pull out all the old stuff first. So we're going to get started. So first step to swapping out a radiator is draining the coolant. So we're about to do that and we're going to collect it all in this jug because I only just recently put in new coolant. So we're going to try and reuse as much as we can. So in order to get the radiator and fan shroud out, I'm going to need to take the intake out. I'm going to need to disconnect this radiator hose and then hopefully it's enough to pull it all up with disconnecting the bottom hose and the fan shroud power. So we're going to go ahead and do all that and hopefully pull it up out of the way pretty easily. Alrighty guys, so up in here there's two little covers that go like that, and you can see a little 10mm bolt that holds the radiator to the heat exchange for the aircon. So we're just going to undo that and separate them. Alrighty guys, so we've got the stock radiator out. I did end up pulling out the fan shroud first just because it's a bit of a tight fit, and obviously radiators are pretty fragile with their fins, so I didn't want to go busting up a radiator that is honestly in pretty good condition. So I might keep this as a spare, and then obviously we've got the new radiator there which looks beautiful. So I thought I would show you guys a bit of a side by side and you can sort of see the differences. So obviously this is a stock one. It's got a little bit of damage, a little bit of wear, but it's nothing too unusual. One thing you guys will notice is that over here is your radiator cap. On the new shroud, it's over here on the inlet pipe. So that's one difference that I've found. Other than that, I think they're pretty similar. apart from the size. So you'll notice that this is, I think they're 16 mil thick. The new one is 36 mil. So we'll show you what that difference looks like. So here's the new radiator. Being real careful with it because it's just so perfect. So the size difference width-wise isn't too different. It does have the tanks on either side instead of top and bottom, but I think width is the same and height is probably also identical, but here's the difference: thickness, which is just, it's almost double, which is really gonna take care of my overheating problems. So one of the benefits of having a bigger radiator is there's more airflow. You got more fins, you got more fluid in the radiator at one time to dissipate heat. The other effect of having more fluid is that it just physically holds more fluid. It can hold more, it increases your capacity, which means that it takes longer for it to get to a higher temperature. So those are your benefits of it, and just upgrading to metal because plastic does deteriorate. This one's not quite there, but I'm sure if I left it longer, it would probably get to the point where the plastic's cracking. So that's the difference. We're gonna whack it in. Alrighty guys, so I've taken out the overflow bottle, the cap can, and the top radiator hose. So it should be all clear to drop the radiator in, and then we'll just have to maneuver this heat exchange for the aircon. But other than that, I think we're ready to go. Alrighty guys, so it did take a little bit of fiddling around with the heat exchange for the radiator, just because it sits in two little legs on the front of the radiator, so you have to lift up the heat exchange, put the radiator in underneath it, and then pick up both of them together and put the radiator in its bottom mounts. So now we're going to put those new bolts in. The kit came with new hardware for the front, which is these little guys. So they replace the old ones that went in there, and then I guess we can put in the fan shroud. Alrighty guys, so here's the radiator shroud on the radiator. I had to pull it out and have a look at the fitment because it wasn't going in. Turns out I had to notch that top corner there just to sort of get it in position and get it close enough. So the only other thing I'm concerned about is that little fitting there, but that's just a plug, and this corner down here which is really close to touching but it isn't quite, so I think I'm fine with that. So now we're going to try and put it in again. Alrighty, so we've got the radiator in with the aircon in front of it and the shroud behind it, all mounted up properly. If you're using a Mishimoto fan shroud, or I guess any aftermarket fan shroud, you will probably have to modify the shroud. I had to cut up in this top corner. So up in this top corner, there's a bung to put in a sensor or a probe, and then over here at the Koyorad neck. So I also had to notch out around this neck here because the factory neck is about halfway along the radiator, whereas this one's over this side. So you do have to sort of cut that neck out, but I think it should be alright. With the additional cooling from the Koyorad, I don't think this shroud needs to be entirely sealed. I think the radiator is going to do wonders. So we're going to finish the install by connecting the hoses and just connecting up the other sensors and stuff.
Alrighty guys, so we had to do more modifying of this shroud. So it's fill neck over here at the extra port for a sensor, and then down at the bottom radiator hose you have to also cut the shroud there. So multiple points where you have to modify it. I'll show you down there. Right above where that radiator hose goes in, I had to shave some of the shroud off, but it's to be expected when I'm putting, you know, a radiator from one brand with a shroud from another brand, and you know, neither one of them are designed to fit together. They're only designed to fit with the OEM parts, and they do fit with the OEM parts great, but then when you mix them together, they're not meant to. So I'm fine with it. I should have expected it. I'm kind of bummed out that I didn't see this coming. So now we're going to see if this will fit, which it probably won't. Ah! It's pissing! Should have expected that too. Oh, this is going great. Alright, so we are all hooked up. The only thing left to do is fill the radiator and bleed the system. So before we fill the radiator, we want to crack the bleed valve at the back of the engine. So that way, as the coolant goes in, it pushes the air up the top and out the bleed valve and out the top of the radiator. So that's going to make bleeding it a whole lot easier if we can get all that air that's sort of in there at the moment out through that bleed valve. Alright, so I just made a nice tight seal into that radiator, so I should be able to fill this up. I do want to crimp this off so it's not going to run into the overflow. Other than that, I think we're ready to go. So I'm going to start by squeezing radiator hoses, because that's usually where you get some air. You can already see there's some decent bubbles coming up, just burping out and sucking the coolant back in. So I'm going to start it up now and we're going to see if any bubbles come out. Bugger. I should have seen that coming. That's what we want. Are you kidding me? I've just made such a mess. Oh, yeah. Alrighty guys, so I'm going to try and show you the next step here, which is bleeding using the bleeder valve just there. So you can see the little gold top on the black body. Now this is a GK Tech Aftermarket bleeder. The factory one is in the same spot. If you are doing any work on your radiator or cooling system that requires you to dump out the fluid, I would definitely recommend buying one of these while you're at it, because it means that you're not going to, be dumping fluid just to change this. You can actually change this at the same time without making it that much bigger of a job. These parts do break. I had mine bust on me, and I had to wait for Dad to come around with some replacement brass hose just to get me through. So definitely replace this if you haven't already done it, and the GK Tech bleeder is awesome. Alright, so now we're going to get on to bleeding. So I completely filled up the radiator till there was no more room to fill it with more liquid. Put the cap on, let the car run till it got to temperature. Now that it's at temperature, the whole system is under pressure. So if we pop that valve open just a little bit, just enough that it starts seeping out air, it's going to sort of hiss, and then it's going to bubble, and then it's going to try and spray fluid out or just dribble. You want it to hiss, and then when it starts bubbling, you want to tighten it back up. And then give the hoses a bit of a squeeze, try and shake out any air, and then do the same thing and repeat until it's just fluid coming out, and then lock it up, turn the car on again, repeat the process, until it's just fluid coming out. It's quite similar to bleeding your brakes, so if you know how to do that, you can probably do this pretty easily. Alrighty guys, so we've got it all bled. I gave everything a hose off because I had coolant everywhere, and I gave the car a wash while I was at it. So I'm not going to do a review right now. I'm going to do a review after the next time I go to the track, and I'm going to review all the parts that I put on at the same time, and that's when you'll be able to get an idea of whether this is good or not. But I'm going to tell you right now, I have very high hopes for this radiator. I think it's a very well made product. Most important part, we're going to put on the sticker. Bam, there's the sticker, look at that. How good is that? Woo!